Hello everybody, and I hope many of you have remembered that I planned to do my virtual concert a little early today. I have an engagement tonight that precludes me from doing it later. But as I said last week, I want to try to get in at least 2 concerts a month during the summer season. One is just not enough. That's kind of what I did last summer. I think it was about every other week. And depending on my other engagements, it may vary a little bit. I always try and announce it during the concert, and then I also do Facebook posts. Doesn't seem like many people have been seeing my Facebook posts. I also put it on the Facebook story yesterday, just as an added precaution. So it's 2 in the afternoon here in Durango, Colorado, and I'm sure I'll have some of my diehard listeners with me this afternoon. And as such, I thought I'd do something a little bit more esoteric. I'm going to do a concert called Revival Ragtime, which is a term I came up with for one of the CDs I recorded, meaning music of the ragtime revival. And that started sort of in the 1950s, actually a little bit before that, but we'll go with the 50s. And I'll keep playing ragtime tunes up to modern times. You know, there are still composers who write really wonderful rags. Personally, I like the contemporary ragtime that is more in the old style. So these tunes will still have that wonderful harmony and rhythm that the old rags had, most of the ones that I'll play for you. And we're going to start out back in the 1950s with a piece that was recorded by my mentor, Johnny Maddox, about 1951 or thereabouts for Dot Records, and it's called Friday Night Stomp. It's actually based on a couple of old folk tunes, but it's very much Johnny's personal piece. It's called Friday Night Stomp. Thank you so much. Friday night stomp on a Sunday afternoon. Well, it looks like I've got almost 50 listeners here on YouTube, so hopefully a few more will join in. If not, Johnny had a saying. He said, where there's more than three assembled, I'll play. And I kind of have to go by that too. Now, what I'm going to play next is something a little different. It's not a piece of music of the Ragtime revival or contemporary ragtime in that sense, but a piece that was revived in the 1950s by the wonderful Lou Bush, who was really a virtuoso pianist and music arranger and band leader who worked for Capitol Records. And Lou Bush, of course, was otherwise known as Joe Fingers Carr. And this is a piece that was originally written in 1917, and Lou Bush revived it in 1952. And I think the first time I ever heard this piece, Professor Bill Edwards played it, and I have always loved it. This is called Rattlesnake Rag. This is the copy from the 50s with a picture of Lou Bush on the cover. And he really made it, I think, a better piece than the original. And so I'm going to play it for you now as best I can. This is Rattlesnake Rag in honor of Joe Fingers Carr. Rattlesnake Rag. Thank you very much. That's one of those tunes that became popular all over again in the 50s. And that was part of the Ragtime revival in a way. My bow tie's always crooked. I try my best. Johnny taught me to tie real bow ties, you know, and I see myself on the screen. It never looks quite right. Oh well. Let's pay tribute now to one of the other great ragtime revivalists who was not only a great pianist, singer, and entertainer, but a gifted composer. And this is a piece that he wrote that goes back to the 50s. I'm talking about Max Morath. So here's the Gold Bar Rag, which Max wrote in the late 50s, and I don't think it was published until the early 60s. But it's called the Gold Bar Rag because Max played at the Gold Bar Room at the Imperial Hotel in Cripple Creek, Colorado. That's where he got his start, at least as a ragtimer. Gold Bar Rag. Just the way Max played it. Gold Bar Rag, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, hello from Norfolk, England. Well, hello right back at you. Nice to have you with us tonight. You know, since I'm doing this concert a little earlier in the afternoon, I was hopeful that I might get more listeners in Europe because it won't be so late at night over there. So far, I don't see quite the numbers that I usually have, so I probably won't keep doing the concerts in the afternoon. I don't even feel quite warmed up yet today. It's funny to me to be playing this early in the afternoon. You know, musicians don't hardly get up till noon, which I didn't today. Oh my, I have a listener in the Netherlands too. Isn't that great? Oh, and I have listeners from Scotland. Hello from Stourbridge, England. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Yeah. Glad you enjoyed the Lou Bush. I sure love his music. I think he was probably the most technically proficient of the 1950s ragtimers. Lou Bush was just so good. You know, he was involved with major big bands of the period. He played with Hal Kemp's orchestra way back in the 30s and was later married to Margaret Whiting, of course, one of my favorite singers. And I'm happy to take requests, as always. If you're new to my concerts, I do accept virtual tips for these performances. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo. The information is in the postings in the chat on all three websites, and it's very helpful to my career, even a small amount. Like I say, I'm going to keep trying to do this at least twice a month, about every other week through the summer season. Will I be doing any music by Tom Brier? Of course I will. I haven't played much of his music, at least it seems like in the last few months, so it's definitely time to do it. Before I get into the Tom Brier music, let me go back a ways and play a couple of the pieces by guys like Tom Shea and Trevor Tishner, who wrote in the old folk rag style. And I'll do Tom Shea first. He wrote really terrific rags, and this was in the 1960s when the Ragtime revival was underway, but the Sting had not yet even come out. And Tom Shea wrote these rags that, honestly, I think they're better than many of the original rags of the period. First, I'm going to play Brun Campbell Express, which was named after Brun Campbell, one of Scott Joplin's piano students who later made a number of records and played in that very early folksy ragtime style. Brun Campbell Express by Tom Shea. Thank you very much. Brun Campbell Express. And we'll follow that right up with Tom Shea's Little Wabash Special, which is one of the pieces. He used it as the title of an LP that he made. And sadly, Tom Shea died. He was only 50-some years old in the early 1980s. And I just think that if he'd lived longer, he would have written a whole lot more wonderful music. But there's still, probably 24 rags that he wrote that hardly anybody plays. And so let's do a Little Wabash Special. you very much. Little Wabash Special by Tom Shea. Oh, Roger, my recordings have been on Apple Music for a long, long time, yeah. If you're interested in those recordings, though, I encourage you to check out all the CDs on my website. I still feel like a physical product is something better to sell to my audience, to my customers, and there's a lot of liner notes. I put a lot of time and effort into those things, which you can only get if you order the physical CDs from my website. But yes, I have been on Apple Music and so forth for many years, and it's a little frustrating because I only make 99 cents on digital downloads versus a $20 CD. That's a huge difference in profits, and not only that, I think many of my CDs have been pirated, and you can listen to all the music for free on YouTube, which somehow I just don't quite feel that's right. But let's do a rag now by a guy who was a real good friend of mine, and he was one of the ragtime revivalists in the 1960s. His career didn't start in the music industry until the early to mid 60s, about 1964, something like that. And he was known primarily as a British rock star. He came to the United States and had about 3 big Billboard hits, sort of the old-time classic rock and roll style. And I'm talking about Ian Whitcomb. And so I have played many of Ian's pieces, but the only one I really have under my fingers that I've committed to memory for a long time is this rag that he wrote. And he said it was inspired partially by the music of Joseph Lamb when he was first getting into ragtime. And it was published by the Maple Leaf Club in Los Angeles in about 1967, I think. And it's called Sandcastle, subtitled Day by the Sea, a ragtime two-step in the classic rag style by Ian Whitcomb. Sandcastle. Thank you so much. That's Sandcastle, A Day by the Sea by Ian Whitcomb. I think his gifts as a composer are highly underrated. I have recorded a few of his pieces on various CDs, including the CD I did called Revival Ragtime. I see Dave Goodlaxon is commenting about the fact that hardly anybody has a CD player anymore. You know, I still use them. I primarily use them on my computer. I rip them to the computer and then I'm able to listen to them wherever I go on my cell phone or anything. And I know some people it's just only ever listen to CDs in their car, and that's fine, but you know, I am such a serious musician that I have to have music like that in the home. And I'm sure you can still buy CD players too. Yeah, as Dave says, you can get them for almost any play system, that's true. Well, let's see, I mentioned Trevor Tishner. I'm going to go back to the folk rags now, and I'm going to play one for you called Deep in the Ozarks. Trevor spent his whole life in St. Louis, Missouri, and he was the king of folk ragtime, played with the St. Louis Ragtimers on the Goldenrod Showboat for many years, and was also a great composer. I hope you all don't mind that this concert is going to be very much piano instrumental centric, but this is good stuff. Here's Deep in the Ozarks, a Missouri Ozark Blues by Trevor Tishner. Thank you very much. Deep in the Ozarks. Roger says, I don't use CDs anymore. When Adam was in Maine, he pointed out his preference. I transferred all my CDs to MP3s. Well, there's a couple other reasons I still use CDs. If they're truly MP3s, your audio quality is inferior. When I rip them to the computer, I use the Apple lossless audio files, which don't remove any audio that is within the human range of hearing. At least that's what I've been told. And, like I said, I still prefer a physical product. And where was I going with that? Let me see. I don't know. I have quite a huge library that I have developed on my computer. It's all cataloged in Apple Music, which used to be iTunes, both from CDs and records in my own collection. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to mention, is that there's a lot of music available on CDs, even many out-of-print CDs going back to the 1980s and 90s, that is not online. It's not on YouTube. It's not on these digital services. And in many cases, that's the music I want to hear. It's not usually the music that a lot of the other young people are listening to on digital downloads. So anyhow, that's my thinking of that. Oh yeah, Trevor's daughter, Virginia, someone says she was just in St. Louis for a Ragtime Rendezvous concert. Yeah, the Tishner family, I have always been very fond of them. They're really gifted musicians. Yeah, Dave says, the audio files may disappear into the ether, and that's also true. Well, enough about that. Let me play some more folk rags for you now. I'd like to play some by a living composer, David Thomas Roberts, and I got into his music more recently by listening to some of his old LPs. There's some more music that is not available online, and let me play one for you now out of this folio. Here's David's first folio of ragtime compositions, and most of these pieces date back to the 1980s, I believe. This one is from 1979. It's called Madison Heights Girl. I just love the sound of it, the rhythm. There's some fun little tricks in the left hand, and it's just as good as any of the folk rags from the early 1900s. This is Madison Heights Girl by David Thomas Roberts. Thank you so much. That's Madison Heights Girl by David Thomas Roberts, sometimes called DTR. Yes, someone's asking if I compose my own pieces. I have written 3 or 4 that are not too bad, I suppose you'd say, and I'm going to play one of them towards the end of the concert. I have the sheet music for a couple of my own rags for sale on my website, believe it or not. You can check that out. Let me do my other DTR piece before I leave the realm of the folk rags, and this one's my favorite. It caught my ear. There's something about it, I just like it. I like the melody and so forth, and it was named for one of the big Southern Railroad lines. So many of these tunes are named for trains. Of course, that's how everyone got around in the old days, and not only passenger trains, freight trains, and that was part of the ragtime era. It's called the Family Lines System by David Thomas Roberts, a folk rag named after the Family Lines Railroad.
Thank you so much.
Family Line System by DTR. Isabel says, there is no sound like CDs or even the old vinyls. Yeah, if you get a vinyl LP that's in really excellent condition and do just a very minor bit of restoration for pops and clicks, it can sound almost as good as a CD. There is, in my opinion, it is a misnomer that there is anything more warm about the sound of a record. That's just poppycock. It's not true. A 16-bit audio, digitally recorded CD has more perfect sound that you can never get on a record. And so that's the truth, I think, and is agreed upon among most audiophiles. The reason that I collect old records is because those recordings are many times not available on CD, and I just want to hear them, or they're not available online. That's a little bit of the history of that. Much of the music of the Ragtime revival that I'm playing tonight was only ever on LPs. One of my pet peeves is how the younger generation all calls them vinyls. Oh, are you getting into vinyls? No, they're called records. They're not called vinyls. First of all, the first half of the 20th century, records were not made out of vinyl. They were made out of shellac, 78s mostly. And even in decades after that, they were not called vinyls, they were called LPs, or 10-inch LPs, or 45s. The main term is a record. In case you wanted my opinion on that. Well, perhaps it's time for some Tom Brier. I did see a request for some of his music earlier. In my opinion, he is one of the greatest living ragtime composers, and so, his music is very difficult to play. Rather than playing it all at once, I think I'm going to spread it out throughout the concert. And so here is a piece that Tom wrote. I heard him play it shortly after he wrote it, about 2007 or 2008. And he used it for the title of one of his CDs. It's called Blue Sahara. It has some sort of oriental sounding harmonies and so forth in the melody as well. This is Blue Sahara by Tom Brier. Thank you very much. I see lots of fireworks or fireballs, whatever those are, in the chat for the Tom Brier music. Thank you so much. That's Blue Sahara, one of his really neat pieces. Let me see. I want to check my Facebook. I was hoping Bob Milne would tune in this afternoon. He may do that at some point. I'm going to play some of his rags. But I can wait till the second part of the program for that. Oh, Jason says family lines. That's what the seaboard was known for. You mean the eastern seaboard? Was it more of an eastern railroad line than southern? Oh gosh, got a listener from Australia on Twitch. Thank you, Bruce. I'm sorry I don't check Twitch as much because I don't have quite as many listeners over there. No, I've never played Cannonball Rag by Northrop. That's a great piece, but today's concert theme is kind of a niche thing. It's contemporary ragtime, otherwise called Music of the Ragtime Revival. And as such, I thought I would play some player piano rolls for you of some newer rags that I don't know. I've never played them, but I can play them on piano rolls for you. You know, QRS has continued to make really terrific piano rolls even into recent decades. In the 1970s, they had people like Eubie Blake, Max Morath, Joanne Castle, and others make piano rolls for their celebrity music series. And I just thought about playing one for you today. I'm going to now represent the music of William Whitcomb. I think I saw a request for Graceful Ghost back there. I have never played that. You know, that's his most popular rag. But he wrote so many others that are really sophisticated and wonderful. And he made player piano rolls for QRS in the 70s. I don't know if I've ever even listened to this. I'm kind of excited to hear it. Here is William Whitcomb's Knight Hubert. The date on this is 1977. Now, this is probably called, not probably, it is called Knight Hubert because it's named after Eubie Blake. Eubie's real name was Hubert. Eubie was short for Hubert. And Whitcomb was a good friend of Eubie Blake's. And so, let's get this roll going. This is a 1913 Apollo player piano, and I do have a dynamic control here. These rolls do not have expression coding in them, but I can add a little bit when I want to, which is kind of nice. Knight Hubert, William Whitcomb. Sure. Night Hubert by Eubie Blake. I'm sure glad this has automatic rewind. It does not have automatic tracking, unfortunately, but it has automatic rewind. I'm going to play one more piano roll, too. In addition to QRS, there was Rob DeLand's Blues Tone music label, and if it was not for Rob DeLand, many of the great original ragtime piano rolls, ragtime and early jazz in particular, such as the rolls hand-played by Scott Joplin, Blind Boone, Eubie Blake, James P. Johnson, they would have never been reissued. And I'm lucky that I got those rolls when Rob was still in business with Blues Tone Music, because that went out of business 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm lucky I got some of those rolls. Now, he also did rolls of contemporary artists, including this one. I even had the composer sign it. This is a piano roll of a piece composed and played by Jack Rummel, who's a ragtimer from Colorado. And he writes back in that old folk rag style mostly. So this is called Mississippi Soul on Blues Tone Music Rolls by Jack Rummel. Trying to figure out the tempo here. Mississippi Soul by Jack Rummel. Let's see what's the date on this. 1992. That's the year I was born. All right, let me put that away. You know, like I said, this music is a little bit of a niche market, a little bit of an underground community, so to speak. And I'm lucky that I have been part of the ragtime festivals around the country now for over 20 years. This summer will be 20 years now since I first played at the Scott Joplin Festival in Sedalia, Missouri when I was 12 years old. That'll be just after Memorial Day weekend. I have no less than 3 music festivals coming up in a row. I'll be the MC, and I'll be doing silent movies at the World Championship Old Time Piano Playing Contest and Festival at Ole Miss University, Oxford, Mississippi. Come see me if you're in the Deep South, Oxford, Mississippi. And then after that, the 50th anniversary Scott Joplin Festival in Sedalia, Missouri. I'll be in several of the concerts. I'm doing a seminar there and several other things. I'm going to be MC for the Saturday evening concert in Sedalia as well. And then shortly after that, I'm playing a concert at the Glenn Miller Festival in Iowa. So if you're in the Midwest, you can come see me there. Unfortunately, that also means my next virtual concert will not be until June 9th. I believe that's Sunday, June 9th. And as such, I will be missing 2 Sundays in a row, I believe. But I'll be back June 9th, and after that, I'll try and space it so that it's every other weekend. At least if I can do that. I may not be able to do it. It just may have to be whatever Sunday I'm home. But where in Iowa? Clarinda, Iowa. That's where Glenn Miller was born. Well, go ahead and send in some more requests, folks. You know, like I said, this is a little bit of an unusual concert today, but I'm happy to take requests. And I do accept virtual tips. All you have to do is send in a tip on PayPal or Venmo. And it's very helpful to my career, even a small amount. And if you don't trust PayPal, I have a P.O. box on my website for checks as well. Oh, I see a request here from Jim Moritz. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. He wants to hear Tango Fredette, which is the beautiful piece written by Johnny Maddox in honor of his girlfriend, Fredette, who loves Latin music, as do I. And Johnny wrote this in the 1990s, I think. Blue and the Black Keys, I'm afraid I'm going to have to save that for another concert. That piece takes some practice, and it's a little too far out of the realm of what I'm doing today. But Tango Fredette coming up now for Jim and Pat. very much. Tango Fredette. How about Victoria Cakewalk? Afraid I've never heard of that one. No. Let me see. There was something else I was going to mention. What was it? Something about Sedalia or the festivals or my virtual concerts. Leo, I'm afraid I'd have to practice Spasmodic before I play that one too. But I tell you what, let's do another Tom Brier rag and throw it in right now. Let's do Balderdash, which I first heard him play at the After Hours at the West Coast Ragtime Festival, and I was astounded by this. I think it's just a great peppy tune, and it's called Balderdash. Thank you very much. Balderdash by Tom Brier. His music is very difficult to play, and that one, I've played it for years, but no matter what I do, I cannot seem to play it with a lot of ease, and it's hard on my wrists. Or it's not my wrist, it's more like my forearm. That's just the way that music is written. There's no getting around it. Let's see. Oh yeah, one of the reasons Tom Brier is so popular and actually famous around the world is because he did a whole bunch of video game themes in Ragtime, and he was also an astonishing sight reader. He could sight read any piece of sheet music that was in front of him. Just sit down and play it perfectly. Oh, got a request here from Carl Lundgren for Rag Apples. Why don't I play that for you, Carl? This is a terrific rag written, I think, in about 2002 or thereabouts by Marty Mincer, who's a friend of mine from Iowa, and Professor Bill Edwards. Marty's an apple farmer, so this is called Rag Apples. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go on a tangent here. Leo says that Tom Brier has 40 plus million views on YouTube. Isn't that incredible? I'm in a few of those videos myself. We had so much fun together at the Ragtime Festival after hours parties. But yeah, 40 million is pretty incredible. That's as close as you can get to being a star in the world of ragtime music today. At least I think that's, you know, kind of how it works. And unfortunately, as I said, I prefer physical products, but the music world has kind of gone digital. Here's Rag Apples. Let's get back to that. Thank you very much. Rag Apples. That's been one of my favorite contemporary rags for many years, written by Marty Mincer and Bill Edwards. Let's see. Oh, people are still talking about Tom Brier here in the chat. I'll play at least one more of his pieces this afternoon for sure. Oh, Sue, this goes out to Sue Needle. You know, I don't know Roberto Clemente by heart. I've never played it. Maybe I will learn that for you. I'm sorry I can't do it yet. I did play some other pieces by David Thomas Roberts earlier. I've only gotten into his music more recently. I think I want to go ahead and play the Bob Milne pieces for you that I mentioned. Bob is one of the great ragtimers who's made quite a career for himself as a concert pianist in more recent decades, and he's also a gifted composer. The first one I'm going to play for you, I think this is the very first rag that Bob wrote. He composed it when he was playing at the Dakota Inn Rathskeller in Detroit, Michigan. This would have been in the early 1970s, something like that, 1970. And it's called The Fly Paper Rag by Bob Milne. Thank you very much. Fly Paper Rag. Well, I'm planning to play one more Bob Milne piece. And he wrote out the sheet music for this and sent it to me. I did play this on my previous concert, which I called Revival Ragtime. Incidentally, as I continue to do these concerts, if there's one that I repeat, I'm going to start putting the year in it. Since I've done Revival Ragtime before, this one is called Revival Ragtime 2024. You know, I'm probably going to do a classic ragtime night every year, and so I'll do the same thing. I'll start putting the year in the title. So if you ever want to go back and watch it on my YouTube channel or so forth, you can do that. You know, I'll probably do a night of movie songs and Broadway songs every year. That kind of thing is likely to repeat. So that's what I'm doing with the title of the concert. And this piece, let's see, he's got a date on it, 1975, is just totally remarkable. I fell in love with it when he played this for me. And again, this was written by Bob Milne. And what he does is he starts out playing a beautiful rag in the key of F, and throughout the piece he gradually modulates into F sharp. You'll hear a few accidentals, you know, sharps and flats in the music, where he gradually goes up. He's in the key of F major. And then gradually he modulates to the key of F sharp. It's rather difficult to play, so I'm going to use the sheet music here. And I also think it's quite a beautiful melody. So here is Bob Milne's Snow Owl. Thank you so much. There's Snow Owl by Bob Milne. Oh, I just got an interesting request here on Facebook for Ragtime Razzmatazz, the piece that Dick Hyman wrote in the 50s. I have played that. I think I played it in my last Revival Ragtime concert. I'm sorry, I can't do it without the sheet music in front of me. That's just the way that goes. Yeah, isn't that a very clever piece? Well, I will play another rag for you that I haven't done very often, and this one was composed by the late David Jason, who was sort of one of the Ragtime Revival era figures, but he was more well known really as an author and collector than a performer. He probably wrote a dozen books, but he wrote some fun rags too. I know that Lou Bush was one of his big inspirations as a piano player, and so here is this piece called Mike's Washboard Rag, and here's the sheet music for it that was published in 2002, I believe, and it has pictures of Mike Schwimmer on it, who's a great washboard player and a piano roll collector, and so David Jason wrote this in honor of Mike's 70th birthday, and it's too bad I don't have Mike here to play washboard with me, but I have always loved this piece. It was premiered and recorded by Jeff Barnhart and Brian Holland. So here is Mike's Washboard Rag, composed 2002 by David Jason. Mike's Washboard Rag. Thank you, folks. As you can tell, there are some built-in pauses in the music which are meant for a percussionist or a washboard player, something like that. Could I play Bob Zerke's Hobson Street Blues? Yes, that's a fantastic piece, but I've never played it. Don't know a lot of things by heart. It has to be something that I've played. But I do have, about 800 other pieces of music you can choose from. So take your pick. Yeah, the sheet music on that piece is so funny. It says, "Tempo de wash the clothes." See, how much time do I have left? Well, I think I know what I want to do next. I'm going to play a piece that I wrote for you. I did get requests for that, and I have just, as of yesterday, released the sheet music for this piece for sale on my own website. And this is a piece that I wrote with two other guys, actually. Paul Orsi, who used to play the piano at Disneyland, and Tom Lakeland, who's a friend of mine from England. So it's called the Transatlantic Rag, and that music that I sell on my website, I have it all typeset with vintage music fonts, so it looks just like the music did in the old days. And this piece did win the 2023 New Rag Contest at the Old Time Piano Playing Competition. And I've only won that twice, I guess, so I'm proud of this. Tom wrote the first part, Paul wrote the second part, I wrote the third part of the piece. Here we go with Transatlantic Rag. Much. Transatlantic Rag. And if you're interested in trying to play that piece yourself, you can now buy the sheet music on my website for $10, popular prices. Well, I think now it would be appropriate to close this afternoon's concert of ragtime revival and contemporary ragtime music with another piece by Tom Brier. So let's do one of his fun, difficult pieces, which, it's hard to keep more than a half a dozen out of these under my fingers at any one point. This one is called Elephant Tracks, written, I think, in the early 2000s by the great Tom Brier, or as Frederick Hodges calls it, Elephant Turds, because he can never remember the name of it. But it's such a great piece, it's funny to give it a bad name. It's Elephant Tracks by Tom Brier. Thank you very much. Elephant Tracks by Tom Brier. Well, I sure appreciate all of you listening this afternoon. I think it was well worth doing an early concert today so that I could play 2 virtual concerts this month. Thank you so much for those of you that send in the virtual tips. I do see it and appreciate it. It's helpful to me, and I will be back again on June 9th on all 3 of these websites for another virtual concert, and it will not be so piano instrumental centric. It will be maybe something more like Music of the Great American Songbook. That's kind of what I have in mind. So please join me again on Sunday, June 9th for another virtual concert, and I won't say good night this time. I'll say good afternoon. Thanks again, everybody.